Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up over the next 30 minutes. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei insists Islamic Republic will not back down in the face of protests. US President Donald Trump cancels a second wave of attacks on Venezuela after Caracas releases political prisoners. Trump terms it as a sign of seeking peace. The US President on Friday says it's up to Chinese President Xi Jinping to decide what China does on Taiwan, but added he'd be very unhappy with any change in status quo. French President Emmanuel Macron says his nation will vote against the EU-Mercosur trade deal after protesting farmers enter Paris with their tractors. And in sports, riding high on World Cup glory, Indian cricket seeks rising stars as its Premier Women's T20 League gets underway. WPL returns for its 4th edition. Now, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has insisted that the Islamic Republic will not back down in the face of protests. The nation saw the biggest rallies yet in an almost 2-week-long period as a movement was sparked off due to anger over rising cost of living. But Khamenei struck a defiant tone in his first comments on the protests, which have been escalating since the 3rd of January, calling the demonstrators vandals and saboteurs in a speech broadcast on state TV. He predicted the arrogant US leader would be overthrown like the imperial dynasty that ruled Iran up to the 1979 revolution. The demonstrations represent one of the biggest challenges yet to the Islamic Republic in its over 4.5 decades of existence, with protesters openly calling for an end to its theocratic rule. Thousands have hit the streets, dozens have died, buildings and statues have been set afire. Internet was also blocked overnight. At least 6 flights between Dubai and Iranian cities scheduled for Friday were cancelled, the Dubai airport website showed. And US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, has threatened to take severe action against Iran if its authorities start killing people. During an interview with a radio host, Trump warned that Washington would hit them very hard. And Trump has cancelled a previously expected second wave of military attacks on Venezuela, following cooperation from the South American nation. Trump said the US and Venezuela are working well together, adding that at least $100 billion would be invested by the big oil companies in Venezuela. He added, however, that all oil tankers in Venezuela will stay in place for safety and security purposes. And Trump also said on Thursday that it's up to Chinese President Xi Jinping to decide what China does on Taiwan. But he warned that he would be very unhappy with any change in the status quo. Trump's remarks have come during an exchange about what lessons Xi Jinping might draw from his military operation in Venezuela. President Trump also said that he did not view the situations as analogous because Taiwan did not pose the same type of threat to China that he has said the government of Nicolas Maduro posed to the United States. And the US Supreme Court is set to deliver a key verdict on President Donald Trump's tariffs. The court is examining whether the Trump administration had the authority to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Another major issue is whether the US government must refund importers who already paid their duties if the court finds the action unlawful. The court has several options before it. The judges could limit the use of emergency powers under the Act and order only partial repayment of tariffs. However, if the White House loses the case, the Trump administration may still have other legal ways to impose tariffs, without relying on emergency powers. The decision could could have wide implications for U.S. trade policy and fiscal situation. Russian forces on Friday launched a massive overnight attack on Ukraine, firing the rare Oreshnik hypersonic ballistic missile at a gas facility near Lviv and bombarding Kyiv with drones and missiles. 4 people died in the capital, including a medic, with 24 injured as apartment blocks were damaged. Half of Kyiv's buildings lost heating amid extremely cold temperatures, prompting Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko to urge residents able to leave temporarily to do so. Ukrainian President Zelensky has demanded strong international response, especially from the US after Moscow rejected Western peacekeeping proposals. Germany condemned Russia's firing of a powerful hypersonic missile at Ukraine in the strongest possible terms and reaffirmed its commitment to fully supporting Kyiv. In another update, the Russian Foreign Ministry said that the United States had released 2 Russian crew members from a Russian-flagged oil tanker that Washington seized earlier this week. American authorities said the tanker was part of a shadow fleet used to transport oil for countries like Venezuela, Russia and Iran, bypassing U.S. sanctions. The ship was seized in the North Atlantic, even though it was being escorted by the Russian Navy. European Union member states have approved the long-delayed Mercosur trade pact on Friday, creating a massive free trade zone for over 700 million people after 25 years of negotiations. The deal eliminates tariffs on over 90% of goods, saving EU businesses €4 billion yearly and boosting exports amid global challenges. Supporters, including Germany, Spain and now Italy, emphasize industrial benefits. However, France's President Macron has vowed opposition, calling it outdated and citing farmer fears of cheap South American imports. Meanwhile, protests saw tractors blockade Paris landmarks, with similar actions in Belgium. Opponents like Ireland and Poland warn of agricultural harm despite concessions. The German stock market index DAX has just reached a new record high this week, climbing past 25,000 points. But while investors are celebrating, many behind the scenes are worried. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and is joining me from Berlin to talk about it. Good evening, Lars. What are you hearing?
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, we are seeing the stock market as strong as never before, climbing to record highs. However, looking at the German economy in general, one has to admit that there is a total disconnect between the euphoria in the markets and the real world. We've talked about it before. The German economy has been rather weak in recent years between recession and stagnation. For 2026, economists are expecting some growth again, but not nearly at a level that one would think would justify record numbers anywhere. In fact, businesses in the real world still face enormous problems, including high labor costs, high energy costs, weakness in key markets, competition in China, tariffs in the United States. And right now, for many companies, the problems have grown so big that experts are worried about record numbers of insolvencies this year. Specifically, they're expecting more large companies to go belly up, expanding on what we've seen in the past year, when we've already seen almost 500 large companies filing for insolvency.
That is definitely concerning. But Lars, which industries are being hit by these insolvencies?
It's to a large part the industrial sector, machine building. That's where competition from China can be felt especially hard. There's also weakness in the auto sector, and while the big car makers seem safe, many of their domestic suppliers are among the companies hardest hit. Economists are also taking it a step further, and they're saying that the suppliers of those auto suppliers are also facing critical risks. There would be companies in metal parts production and such. Often those companies aren't household names, they are niche producers, but their niche is getting tighter with fewer cars being produced. And the biggest problem that analysts are now pointing out, they're afraid this is not just a dent, but that we're seeing the consequence of a systemic failure in the German economy, and that it will be very hard to reverse what is currently happening.
And Lars, how come markets don't reflect these problems at all? Why are we seeing record highs in Frankfurt then?
Well, that is mostly due to the fact that the DAX, as the main German index, is made up of 40 companies that do most of their business abroad. And now, for sure, we are seeing problems outside Germany as well. Like I mentioned, there are those tariffs in the US and there's competition in China. But still, many of those global players in the DAX are playing in a different league. They're making 80% of their entire revenue abroad, and their business is relatively stable. Throw in the defense stocks and all those somewhat connected even to defense. They are doing great in times of crisis, and in the current environment with Russia's war in Ukraine still going on, and with the US and recent action in Venezuela shaking up the Western Hemisphere, those shares are specifically doing good. But again, these companies and their strong performance are just not an indicator of how things really stand for the German economy.
And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Home Minister Amit Shah virtually inaugurates India's NIDMS digital platform for sharing improvised explosive devices data nationwide. The nation is celebrating the second day of the Somnath Swabhiman Parv, with the revered pilgrimage site completing 1,000 years of its history. And the nation is also marking Prasar Bharati Divas today, where it celebrates the expanse and achievements of the Indian diaspora worldwide.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, in a weekly press briefing by India's Ministry of External Affairs, spokesperson Ranveer Jaiswal addressed the media. Referring to US Commerce Secretary's remarks, Jaiswal said that since the 3rd of February last year, India and the US have held multiple rounds of negotiation and have been close to a deal. He highlighted that characterization of these discussions in the reported remarks is not accurate.
We have seen the remarks. India and the United States were committed to negotiating a bilateral trade agreement with the US as far back as 13th of February last year, that is. Since then, two sides have held multiple rounds of negotiations to arrive at a balanced and mutually beneficial trade agreement. On several occasions, we have been close to a deal. The characterization of these discussions in the reported remarks is not accurate. We remain interested in a mutually beneficial trade deal between two complementary economies and look forward to concluding it. Incidentally, Prime Minister and President Trump have also spoken on phone on 8 occasions during 2025, covering different aspects of our wide-ranging partnership.
And speaking on incidents of rising Chinese aggression in the region, the MA spokesperson said that India has never recognized the so-called China-Pakistan boundary agreement of 1963 and asserted that the Shaksgam Valley is Indian territory.
Shaksgam Valley is Indian territory. We have never recognized the so-called China-Pakistan boundary agreement that happened in 1963. We have consistently maintained that the agreement is illegal and invalid. We do not recognize the so-called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor either, which passes through Indian territory that is under forcible and illegal occupation of Pakistan. The entire Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh are an integral and inalienable part of India. This has been clearly conveyed to Pakistani and the Chinese authorities several times. We have consistently protested with the Chinese side against attempts to alter the ground reality in Shaksgam Valley. We further reserve the right to take necessary measures to safeguard our interests.
On Chinese military exercises near Taiwan, ABA spokesperson said that India closely follows developments across the Indo-Pacific region and urges all concerned parties to exercise restraint.
India closely follows developments across the Indo-Pacific region. We have an abiding interest in peace and stability in the region in view of our significant trade, economic, people-to-people and maritime interest. We urge all concerned parties to exercise restraint, eschew unilateral actions and resolve all issues through peaceful means without threat or use of force.
India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal held high-level discussions with EU Trade and Economic Security Commissioner Maros Sefcovic to advance a mutually beneficial free trade agreement. The talks focused on key areas of the proposed pact, emphasizing a rules-based trading system and modern economic ties. Both the sides committed to protecting farmers and the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises while integrating Indian industries into global supply chains. This meeting builds on ongoing efforts to strengthen India-EU relations amid global trade challenges. Piyush Goyal shared highlights on social media platform X, underscoring bilateral cooperation. Now, on the second day of the Somnath Swabhiman Parv, the entire Somnath is immersed in a divine atmosphere. DD India's Siddharth Bhardwaj brings you this latest from Ground Zero in this report.
I'm on the holy land of Somnath, and behind me is the Somnath temple that stands tall and rock solid, and such is the grandeur of Somnath temple. Today is the second day of Somnath Swabhiman Parv. This Parv honors the warriors who stood against the barbaric invasions at the Somnath temple. And for a fact that the first attack at the Somnath temple happened in the year 1026 by Mahmud Ghaznavi, and after that many foreign invaders tried to attack the Somnath temple, but the zeal, the grit and the absolute resolve of the children of Bharat Mata made sure that this temple is rebuilt, rejuvenated and reconstructed. The atmosphere at the second day is quite electric, and people from all walks of life have come here, in fact not just from the country but also from different parts of the world, to experience the grandeur on the second day of this festival. You can see behind me there are people who are singing religious songs, they are dancing as well, and they are completely immersed in the divine atmosphere here at Somnath. Talking about the security arrangements are pretty tight, and the authorities are leaving no stone unturned to make sure that everything goes in a smooth line manner. Year 2026 is a very significant one for Somnath temple, as it marks 1000 years when the first attack happened at the Somnath temple, and also 75 years when this temple was opened to the devotees in the year 1951. Somnath is a victory of creativity over destruction. It's a victory of humanity over barbarity, and it's a victory of compassion over cruelty, and it's also a symbol of valor and great pride. With camera person Vinod Kumar Roja, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India in Somnath, Gujarat.
Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting Ashwini Vaishnav, along with Minister of State L. Murugan, on Friday launched Creators Corner on DD News, a special program dedicated to content creators. The inaugural ceremony featured a welcome address by Prasar Bharati Chief Executive Officer and remarks by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Secretary Sanjay Jaju. Inspired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision to encourage the content creators' economy, the show provides a national platform for creators from diverse regions and topics. It will air from Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time with repeats. Officials present at the event praised the initiative for bridging creators with public broadcasting.
तो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी हर सेक्टर में रिफॉर्म्स के लिए हमको इंस्पायर करते हैं। उसी कड़ी में आज क्रिएटर्स कॉर्नर लॉन्च हुआ है। ये नई शुरुआत के लिए दूरदर्शन को, प्रसार भारती को, INB मिनिस्ट्री को और सभी क्रिएटर साथियों को अभिनंदन। हम लोगों का करीब करीब टारगेट है क्रिएटर इकोनॉमी में 1 करोड़ नौजवान जुड़े। 1 करोड़ यूथ will be connected through creators economy. एक तरीके से ये नया एम्प्लॉयमेंट की अपॉर्चुनिटी बनेगी.
And in some weather updates, a deep depression over the southwest Bay of Bengal has altered its path, now tracking northwest towards northern Sri Lanka. Meteorologists forecast the system to make landfall on the 10th of this month. Sri Lanka remains on high alert with expectations of heavy rain, strong winds and thunderstorms across northern and eastern regions, though risks in the central highlands have also eased, prompting the National Building Research Organization to lift evacuation advisories there. Disaster management officials urge residents to stay vigilant, follow official warnings and monitor updates as the system intensifies. Sports now, and the stage is set for another exciting season of women's cricket as the Women's Premier League returns with its 4th edition. With teams reshaped after the mega auction, new captains, fresh coaching setups and a few notable absences, WPL 2026 promises plenty of intrigue even before the first ball is bowled. Defending champions Mumbai Indians will get the tournament underway against Royal Challengers Bengaluru as the league unfolds across Navi Mumbai and Vadodara.
The much-awaited Women's Premier League is set to return with its 4th edition, bringing fresh excitement after the auction reshaped all franchises. The season will open on Friday with a blockbuster clash as defending champions Mumbai Indians, led by the World Cup winning captain Harmanpreet Kaur, take on the Royal Challengers Bengaluru, led by 2025's highest run scorer Smriti Mandhana. Both teams enter the tournament with reshaped squads. Two-time champions Mumbai Indians and 2024 winners RCB will miss the services of some key players. The tournament will be played across 2 key venues, the D.Y. Patil Stadium in Navi Mumbai and Kotambi Stadium in Vadodara. The first 11 matches will be held in Navi Mumbai, with the remaining 11 matches, including the eliminator and the final, shifting to Vadodara. Notably, double headers return for the first time since the inaugural WPL season. There has been significant movement off the field as well. Delhi Capitals will be led by Jamima Rodriguez, taking over the captaincy from Meg Lanning, who will now captain UP Warriors. 3 franchises also begin the season with new head coaches. Lisa replaces Charlotte Edwards at Mumbai Indians. Malolan Rangarajan takes charge of RCB, while Abhishek Nair steps in as head coach of UP. Several big international names will be missing from this edition. Elise Perry of RCB and Annabelle Sutherland of Delhi Capitals have withdrawn for personal reasons. RCB have named Sayali as Perry's replacement, leaving them with only 5 overseas players in their squad, while DC have brought in Alana King. Meanwhile, Elisa Healy, Chamaria Tapattu and Heather Knight went unsold at the auction, while Jess Jonathan, Tahila McGrath and Sophie chose not to register. There are plenty of exciting players to watch out for. Lizelle Lee, now with Delhi Capitals, comes into the tournament after a stellar WBBL season, scoring 305 runs at an average of 38.12 and a strike rate of 154.82. DC have also added 16-year-old Diya Yadav, an uncapped batter from Haryana, who has modelled her game on Shefali Verma. For Mumbai Indians, fast bowler Millie Illingworth, inspired by Jeff Thompson and capable of touching the 120 km/h mark, adds an intriguing pace option. With new faces and fresh leadership, the WPL shapes up as a season of transition and opportunity. As teams fine-tune their combinations and players look to make their mark ahead of the global calendar, The league once again promises high-quality competition and compelling stories, setting the tone for another landmark chapter in the WPL and women's cricket. Sports Desk, DD India.
Former champion Stan Wawrinka was handed a wild card for the 2026 Australian Open in his final season. The 40-year-old Wawrinka of Switzerland will play his last season before retiring. The three-time Grand Slam champion won the first of his majors at Melbourne in 2014, during which he peaked to world number 3 and reached 2 other semi-finals, while home favourite Nick Kyrgios said he will play only doubles. The final 3 wildcards went to three-time Grand Slam winner Wawrinka and Australia's Jordan Thompson and Chris O'Connell. The Grand Slam event starts on the 18th of this month. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code and download the app. As simple as that. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.